Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan, a podcast for anyone wanting to start, grow or scale a profitable creative product business with me, Catherine Erdley. The Resilient Retail Game Plan is a podcast dedicated to one thing, breaking down the concepts and tools that I've gathered from 20 years in the retail industry and showing you how you can use them in your business. This is the real nuts and bolts of running a successful product business, broken down in an easy, accessible way. This is not a podcast about learning how to make your business look good. It's the tools and techniques that will make you and your business feel good. Confidently plan, launch and manage your products, and feel in control of your sales numbers and cash flow to help you build a resilient retail business. Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan. I'm your host, Catherine Erdley, as well as the founder of the Resilient Retail Club, which is my membership group and consultancy for product businesses. You can find out more at resilientretailclub.com. And if you use the code 10podcast, that's 10podcast, you can get £10 off your first month in the club. Now is a great time of year to join the club. It is getting geared up, ready to go for helping you prepare for 2023. We've got a huge library of resources, a really supportive community, and 4 live events a month. So I'd love for you to join us. I'd also love for you to go take a look at resilientretailclub.com and take a look at my mentoring offering. I have a couple of spaces remaining for a January start with my retail business mentoring, which is something that I'm really passionate about. It's my favorite way of working with businesses one-to-one. We work together over 6 months, so an entire half year, and we can focus on whatever it is that you need, whether that's growing your sales, if you are perhaps first starting out or really looking to boost sales. It could be perhaps helping you scale, helping you understand your numbers, helping you feel more confident as a business owner, helping you put together a really good plan for 2023. And it is unlimited support via WhatsApp and email, as well as a 1-hour call a month. So we get the opportunity to work together pretty much hand in hand for 6 months. I limit it to just a few businesses at a time. And as I said, it's one of my favorite ways of working with businesses because we can work on so much and make so much progress in 6 months. I would love to invite you to take a look. I do also offer a payment plan, so you can split the cost of the mentoring, the 6-month mentoring, across 12 months. So no, cash flow is something that we're all very aware of at this time of year. There is all the information on there. If you click on the primary navigation, you'll see mentoring. You can read all about it, what the people have said about working with me. And if after all of that, you've got questions or you want to schedule a call to have a chat, then you can fill out a form right there or get in touch. Drop me an email, catherine@resilientretailclub.com, and I'd love to talk to you more about how I can work with you one-on-one in your business in 2023. On to today's topic. I wanted to touch on how you sell in January. So in particular, I've got 4 ways that you could boost your sales in January, because this podcast is going out, it's nearly Christmas. This podcast will be going out on the 22nd of December. So for all of you, apart from the bricks and mortar stores, then you will be pretty much wrapped up at this point, ready to go, ready for a bit of a break, hopefully, a bit of downtime. Last week's episode, if you didn't catch it, was all about how to use that quiet time. So definitely go listen to that. What I wanted to talk about is looking forward into January, because January is often a very tough time of year for a lot of people mentally in retail, because it does tend to be quieter. So perhaps the first thing to say about January is one of the best ways for you to grow your sales in January is just to accept that it's going to feel different to December. The more that you can be aware of this and be really conscious of the fact that it is going to feel different, then the more you can focus on what you can do, as opposed to perhaps falling into that trap, or as I call it, the cycle of doom, where you might be really concerned and think, oh, that's it, nobody's going to buy from me, everything's done, there's nothing that I can do. So first things first, really, as I said, one of the ways to boost your sales in January is to make sure that you are prepared for the fact that, seasonally speaking, it could be a quieter month for you. Now, that's not strictly speaking true for everybody, so I don't want to create a false expectation, but if you are seeing slower sales in January, then just be aware that that is normal, and you can continue to use the quieter time to prepare for the rest of the year. The most important thing is that you don't let it knock your confidence or shake your plans for the rest of 2023. So here are my suggestions for 4 ways that you can grow sales and 4 ways that big retailers really focus on pushing their sales in January. The first one is, quite frankly, a stock clearance event. That's why we have the January sales. It's people selling off the excess stock that they've got left after Christmas, things that they'd invested heavily in, and they just want to clear through. So I definitely think that there is a bargain customer out hunting in January, and it makes a lot of sense for you to do some kind of stock clearance activity, whether that's a question of you discounting stock that you've got heavy amounts of that you don't want to carry forward. So, for example, if you have cold weather products, yes, it's still going to be cold in January. It's still going to be cold probably in February and March, but you definitely do see demand tail off as you move into the spring. So if you are sitting on heavy amounts of stock, this would be the time that you'd start thinking about trying to clear it. Also have a look around wherever it is that you're working from and have a look for things like seconds, samples. Again, like a samples and second sale can be a really good way to boost some sales in January, clear out some space, make room for the new year, the new stock, and just generally have a bit of a tidy up. So one of the ways then really a lot, and this is the reason a lot of retailers have these sales in January, is to help boost a quieter time, but also to help them clear through any stock that they bought heavily in for Christmas and maybe didn't sell as well as they thought that it would do. If you have got any extra stock that is hanging around that you know that you don't want to carry forward, this is a great time, as I said, to clear through it, and has the flip side of providing a nice little boost of income at a month which might otherwise be quite quiet. So that would be my first tip for you. Also, I know that often people have said this, and I probably said this a couple of weeks ago. I had the podcast on stock management, but just really to reiterate that a stock clearance sale where you're getting rid of odds and ends in January is not seen by your customer in the same way as endless discounting. It's something that people understand. They know that retailers do it. They know that it's there to help retailers free up cash, or maybe they do, or maybe they just think, oh, this is something that they always do. So I don't think it's brand damaging. You don't want it to go on and on and on, but a couple of weeks of clearance, then I think that that's absolutely fine. And as I said, can help you start the year with a bit of more space and a bit more cash, which is great. The second way of growing sales in January is taking time to introduce yourself to any new customers that you have gained over Christmas. The Christmas we often think about as the finish line, getting to Christmas, but it can also be the starting pistol for the following year. So during the time that you were selling at Christmas, you would have got new customers who have bought from you for the first time ever, because you most likely will have had a higher volume of customers at this time of year than at other times of year. So the likelihood is there are people who bought from you for the first time in December. And one way that you can do it in January, one way that you can look to boost sales, is just getting in contact with them, just following up. Now, you may well already have flows set up, so automatic email flows that if somebody's bought from you for the first time, that they're getting some kind of welcome, thanks for buying from me, here's a bit more about us, then they may already be getting that kind of communication from you. But you could look at doing targeted emails as well. If people have bought something from you and you know that typically a customer might buy one item from you to try it out and then come back and buy more, you could have targeted emails that go out to people who have bought from you for the first time and offering them something else, something complimentary. Or as I said, if you know for a fact that there's a typical behavior that says they'll buy one thing to try it and then they'll come back and buy more, then that's all a really good option in terms of just reaching out and talking to your customers. Now, it doesn't have to be a hard sell. It doesn't have to be the 1st of January. It could be something that comes more towards the end of the month. But it's kind of just thinking about those new customers that you got at Christmas and thinking about how you're going to build that ongoing relationship with them. What are you going to do? Are you literally just going to put them in a big pile with the rest of your customers and send them a newsletter, hopefully every week or however often you send them? That's fine. You could do that. Or do you want to have something special that you do for them? If they've bought a product, could you send them care tips? Now, of course, they could have bought these items for gifting, but you could also send kind of a little bounce back voucher, something that says, thanks so much for buying from us in December. We appreciate your support. Here's £5 off an order in January. That could be something that you do. But just generally thinking about the people that you've met for the first time, if you like, how you can then build that relationship and talk to them and perhaps offer them something. Perhaps it's a discount, perhaps it's just information, perhaps it's just a hi, but just really thinking of how you can continue to maximize those Christmas sales even into this quieter time of year, and also sort of set you up on the right foot so that they can eventually become ongoing regular customers and maybe even super fans one day, which is what we're all aiming for. The third point that I want to make about growing sales in January, and this again is something that big retailers spend a lot of time thinking about, and that is to really focus in on what your customer wants from you right now. So what are all the different reasons that a customer would buy from you in January? This goes back to something I've talked about before, that it's not just about knowing your customer, but it's about knowing your customer and what they want right now. And I can tell you that as much as January is a tough month for sales, there are some very distinct customer habits, customer behaviors that happen in January that may or may not be relevant to your business. So I wanted to talk through a few of them, and hopefully it'll just give you some food for thought. They may not be relevant to your business. It all really depends on what you're selling and who your customer is, but hopefully it will give you some things to think about in terms of your messaging. Often big retailers, they will have a pretty quick, what we call a snapback, as I mentioned before, a time where they flip over from their Christmas products into their new seasonal spring products. So they always have fresh deliveries of stock that happen right before Christmas to be put out after Christmas or very early in January to kind of get that freshness so that people, when they come to the shops, if they've got a bit of Christmas money to spend, they're not seeing something that they've seen all the time in the run up to Christmas. So it is a very common phenomenon to be launching new products in January. And broadly speaking, they're going to fall into one of several following categories. So the phrase New Year, New You, it's not just a cheesy thing that you see in magazines, but it's something that retailers really do think about. So they will be focusing a lot of their January products on things like fitness equipment or gym outfits, water bottles, supplements, so food supplements, health products, organizational products, bullet journals, filing systems, notebooks, pens, all of the paraphernalia that you might need to get yourself really organized in the new year. So there's a lot about this idea about planners, organization, fitness, wellness. I think there's a big focus on also sort of mental health as well, so mental well-being. So people thinking about how I can start healthy habits in the new year. You see it trotted out everywhere because it's not only common messaging, but the reason it's common messaging is that it's following consumer patterns. It's thinking about what would somebody buy from you in the new year. And a lot of the time it is going to really tie into this idea of, right, what are customers thinking about? They're thinking about their New Year's resolutions. They're thinking about ways that they can change their lives for the better. Let's face it, the whole idea about New Year's resolutions. So what is there in your business that you could perhaps tailor to this idea? For example, if you sell stationery, could you really focus on your planners? Could you really focus on blog posts about how to get yourself organized with our notebooks, how to use the bullet journal format if that's something you sell? Or look at your products, have a think about what it is. If you sell candles, home fragrance, could you talk about this is the year you get organized and have a great smelling home, all of these different things, but just kind of framing what you're talking about in a way that makes sense and locks into what your customer is thinking about in January, because that goes a long way in terms of helping stimulate some sales. In the same way that at Christmas, it was all about gifting, who you were getting things for, then the focus really does switch back to the self in January. So really thinking about how you can get that across and what products you might have that might fit the bill. The other thing to think about January is often people book holidays. You'll see all the ads for the holiday companies pop up in January. People start dreaming about sunny getaways. So that could be something that you could talk about. It's also can be the start of things like swimwear season, because people might buy something to go on a winter sun holiday, for example. Lots of different elements there. Lots of things for you to think about, and just consider your customer. What do you think they're doing in January? Are they the kind of person who's going to book their holidays? Are they the kind of person who is actually going to be looking at those warm winter getaways? And therefore, even if you had some summer stock left over from last year or products that could work for that, is it worth your while sending out an email? Doesn't mean you have to build your entire marketing campaign around this idea that people might want something for a getaway. But if you've got products and it would work and you think your customer this may resonate, just try it. Because that's how you learn, ultimately. You might send it out and realise, actually, yeah, loads of people really responded well to that. Or you try it and nobody bats an eyelid. You don't really know until you try, but just keep thinking about all the reasons that people might buy in January. Another one to think about is weddings. The peak for engagements happens between Christmas and New Year, unsurprisingly. So if you have got anything to do with weddings, not so much, say, wedding guest gifts or things like that, but certainly in terms of bridal, in terms of people who are starting to plan weddings. So, for example, if you sold anything to do with wedding planning, or again, organisation comes back to that, what could you do there? People will start thinking about ideas. If you're a jewellery brand, for example, could you be talking about bridal ideas or bridesmaids gifting, for example, all these kinds of things? Just be aware that there will be a new crop of newly engaged brides-to-be who pop up in January. So is that relevant for you? May or may not be. It's too early for things, generally for things like wedding guest outfits, as I said, or gifting, because that comes really in the peak of the summer wedding season. Absolutely, in terms of the brides themselves getting ready and planning ahead, that is something that will definitely be a factor in January. So lots of different things there. And of course, I'm going to have a podcast episode all about Valentine's Day, but Valentine's, that's what the big retailers are they're already got their eyes on the next big holiday. I don't think personally, I often see huge amounts of Valentine's sales happening in January. I think that very much tends to pick up end of Jan, those last 2 weeks before Valentine's Day. But if you've got a range, then why not put it out there in terms of getting in front of the super organized customer? That could be something to think about. So really run through in your head all of the reasons that people might buy from you in January, and just make sure you're really tweaking your messaging so that it is tying in with what they're going to be thinking about, because nothing makes it easier to sell than really tuning into what your customer wants right this minute. And then my fourth and final point about growing your sales in January is to maybe think slightly outside your direct consumer income stream if you are a brand that has multiple income streams, because although it can be a quiet time of year for selling directly to a consumer and selling online, for example, it may well be that this is a great time for you to be pushing your wholesale. Lots of the trade shows will be happening in January, early February. So retailers are for sure out there looking at the year ahead, what they want to stock. They certainly, if they haven't already bought all of their spring occasions, so their Valentine's, Mother's Day, Easter, Father's Day, if they haven't already bought or committed to those ranges from last year, then from the autumn trade shows last year, then they will definitely be thinking about the new ranges in the new year after Christmas. It really just depends how organised they are and how far ahead they're buying. If they are the kind of person who needs to get through Christmas, which, let's face it, is fair enough, and then really turn their attention to the newness, then it could be a great time for you to be pitching new product launches and your spring ranges. So if you thought about wholesale and you don't know where to start, then go check out in the Resilient Retail Club. We have got the complete introduction to wholesale course, which you get as part of your membership, which I developed with Therese Ortenblad from Small Business Collaborative, and will really take you from not knowing anything about wholesale to having a really good idea. Or if you've maybe started but want to ramp it up, then again, come take a look. Just keep thinking about all of those different ways. As I said, the most important thing really about all of these elements. So just to recap, we talked about clearing stock. We talked about having specific email campaigns in particular aimed at the people who joined you as new customers for the first time at Christmas. We talked about focusing on what your customer wants, whether that is new year, new you, organisation, fitness, health, wellness, or holiday purchasing and wedding planning. And then the final point being about looking at your other income streams, particularly wholesale. January can be a really strong month for wholesale. So as I said, really all of these feed into what I said at the very beginning about focusing on what January is and what it isn't. If it's quiet for you, then that is absolutely normal. And if you're so busy feeling distressed and upset about it being quiet that you don't do any of these other things, then you could miss out on some really good opportunities. We talked more last week about how to use this quiet time in your business, but there's lots of different things that you can be doing, from recapping all your Christmas sales, recapping your 12-month sales if you look at the calendar year for your reporting. So much that you can do, but the most important thing really is to just be aware that for a lot of people it can be a quieter month. and think about what you can do as opposed to deciding it's all your fault, because I can guarantee it is not. So there you go. That was my Get Ready for January pep talk. I hope you found it useful. Why not come over to Instagram at Resilient Retail Club? Tell me what you thought about today's episode. Tell me what you're going to be doing in January. Also, if you have a moment to rate and review the podcast, that means the absolute world to me. I really love it when I read your reviews. I read them all personally, and I'm incredibly grateful for them. And they're very helpful in getting the podcast out in front of more people. And also, I would invite you to follow or subscribe, and you'll be the first to know about each new episode when it happens. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, then I invite you to check out resilientretailclub.com. The Resilient Retail Club is the membership for anyone wanting to start, grow, or scale a profitable product business. No more trawling Google trying to find the answers to your questions, or wading through general business advice that speaks mainly to service-based businesses. Whether you're still at the idea stage or you've been going for a while but want to get more focused and organised when it comes to your business, the Resilient Retail Club is the place for you. With a library of courses tailored to creative product businesses, several live sessions a month, and a supportive and active community, the Resilient Retail Club is the perfect membership to help you hit your goals faster. Check it out at resilientretailclub.com.